enjoy watching me make my morning coffee while I explain how Ken Coleman might have given the answer as to why a lot of these scummy politicians, and particularly Democrats, and particularly Kamala Harris, Cam Bam Harris, is still in the running. Because it shouldn't make any sense. Someone that's had as many verifiable scandals as Kamala Harris should not have anything left in politics. Probably shouldn't have made it in the first place. So, what I have noticed, and I think you guys have noticed this as well, especially my Rumble team, it seems like every time one of these Democrat politicians does something horrible, the news will cover up for them. We've seen this for a long time. We can just look back in history. If we were just talking about Joe Biden, then we know for a fact that Joe Biden's mental abilities were being covered up by the media. And now we're seeing that they're doing the same thing for Harris with all of the crap that's in her history right now. What was it that happened? It wasn't until she started running for president that her record as a prosecutor got covered up. And it makes you wonder, how is this even possible? If we saw something like this happening in our everyday lives, we would probably have somebody who would be trying to take him out. And this is what I think I've figured out. I think you guys know by now. Let me move this so you guys can see me a little better. I've been following Ken Coleman's stuff for a little while. I took his assessment. I've got a couple of videos that'll be coming out soon about those, about the assessment. And I realized something. Democrats are doing on a massive scale what we should be doing on a small scale. Let me explain for this. Kamala Harris is not where she is today because of her abilities, right? I think that at least on Rumble, we know that. We've seen the receipts. We know that she worked her way to the top. And we know that that's been a long understood fact for a while. And yet it seems that no matter how many controversies they're caught up in, they seem to keep getting out of it. And it seems that no matter how many controversies they get caught in, the media will always run against them. And I said at one point in a video that got a little bit of traction that the reason was because Democrat politicians and the media don't care about the truth. They only care about the target. The only thing that matters is taking the target down. And I think that was part of that. I really do. But I don't anymore think that it's the main reason. I now believe that the main reason simply comes down to one of the most easily understood principles in history. People in power like to stay in power. But specifically, it was Ken Coleman's advice that made me realize what was going on. Now, Ken is a diehard conservative. But one of the principles that he talked about for us in terms of getting to the career place that we want to be, I noticed is exactly how Democrat politicians keep getting away with what they get away with. It's all about networking. Think about this for a minute, okay? So you've got CNN, NBC, CBS, ABC. Who else am I missing? I'm going to throw the Young Turks in there with it. You've got all of them, all of these media companies working together for a sole purpose. Keep Democrats in office, okay? For those on YouTube, you want to argue about that? We can argue about that at a later time. But hold on for a second with me because we all know, we've seen the compilations of them basically passing around the same script. They all pass around the same script. They all say the same things, even if They're ridiculous. A threat to our democracy. And then they all start saying threat to our democracy. Or one of them starts saying that the Trump campaign is weird. And then they all start saying the Trump campaign is weird. And I pointed out to somebody on TikTok one time, it's like, usually in movies, when a bunch of people start saying the same words and acting like they're not, it's usually in a horror movie and it's usually said by the bad guys. But that's it's just movies. Got another 1 minute until time to plunge it. Their networking has kept them in power. Now, isn't that a fascinating idea? That, like, the reason why someone like Kamala Harris, who should not be successful in running for office at all, I mean, I don't think that she's going to win, but I mean, the quartering pointed this out. She's doing way better than she should be. I mean, by all accounts, she should have disappeared from the race or be like abysmally low numbers for a long time. So why hasn't she? Well, part of it's because the media has been running cover for her. Why is the media running cover for her? Because of the networking they've done. Everybody knows somebody. They've been the Democrats were running hard against Dick Cheney for a long time, and now they're starting to line up with Dick Cheney. It's like, this is all, I'm going to talk about weird. How about agreeing with the guy that you used to call a Nazi? I mean, they did the same thing with John McCain, Mitt Romney, Ronald Reagan. They did the same thing with all of them. And then a couple of years later, they start glorifying them. Well, it's because it's not the beliefs that matter. It's the network. It's a bunch of people in power keeping themselves in power. Now, that's a very negative thing. That's a negative way to use Ken Coleman's. I have not read the book yet, so I cannot say that this is the proximity principle, but based off of what I understand, it is the idea. If you want to be like somebody else, you need to be in their circles, doing the things they do, knowing the people that they know. If you want to be somewhere, you need to be around the people that are doing that thing. And it just made me realize, like, we don't utilize that enough. And, we get onto these politicians for doing exactly that, but then we don't utilize that same thing for ourselves. And it's not an inherently evil principle, but it's one that I think that Republicans need to do a little bit better. I do agree with Louder with Crowder when it comes to the fallout between them and Daily Wire, but that was a powerhouse team to have the Daily Wire and Louder with Crowder. The two of them drove the news for a long time. Shoot, I was looking back just this past year. Those two companies destroyed the news cycle of 2023. I mean, y'all can go back and watch the hour and 40-minute video where I walk through what I believe to be the major news stories of 2023. Those two names kept popping up over and over. Daily Wire, Louder with Crowder. Daily Wire, Louder with Crowder. Most of it was Louder with Crowder, but Daily Wire really hit it hard as well in 23 because that network was really strong. And now that network is broken. And so even though the individual pieces are strong, they're not as strong as they were or they could have been if they were still together. This is an area where the left gets something right that we need to work on. And it's also something that we need to work on, in our own personal lives. One of the things I did when I started off in ministry is I found somebody locally who was living in ministry the way that I wanted to. They were happy in ministry. They were thriving. They were at a decent sized church doing really good work, reaching hundreds of students every year for the gospel of Jesus. And so I asked him to be my mentor, and we still talk to this day. And he still gives me advice on like ways that I can reach out to some of my struggling students. If you want to be like somebody, you got to be around them. And that's the exact thing that Kamala Harris has done. She wants to be in power. Well, she surrounded herself by people in power. And all of them together keep each other in power. It's a minor observation, but maybe you enjoy it. Is there something else that you see that might be important? It's weird to me how what evil does is not create something new, but twist something that's good. The idea of the proximity principle is a great thing, but we can see very clearly that it can be used to keep evil people in power through the strength of networking. That's all I got for today. Rambled on a little longer than I wanted. I'll see y'all later.